Live from the Export Beer Garden Studios, you're listening to the BYC. On this podcast, we'll be having a final look at the Black Caps Pakistan T20 series, where it seemed for all money that Pakistan had one foot on the plane and a clean sweep would be inevitable, only for New Zealand to completely drop their bundle and implode in their own innings. Ultimately, we'll take the 4-1 series victory as we look ahead to the more taxing prospect of South Africa and Australia. It's a bumper end to the cricket season and will probably give us a more accurate assessment of exactly where this Black Cap side is at. Dylan Cleaver, mate, how you going?
I'm good, mate. I had to comment when you entered the studio, mallet finger. Can you give us a quick rundown on what mallet finger is? Yes.
Well, it was funny, actually. It was in this very studio that the injury occurred, Dylan. I was picking something up off the floor. I bumped my little finger there, went into the offices about 5 minutes later, and my finger looked like it had had a stroke. It was drooping dramatically, and I was like, what the is going on there? Then I had to do the black clash and blah, blah, blah. But yes, it's mallet finger where basically the tendon's rooted. And so the tip of my finger is just pointing downwards. So I went to Hands Out West today. Oh, yes. They've strapped it all up for me, and I've got to be in this for 8 weeks.
Which would really get in the way of your freestyle, wouldn't you?
Yeah,
you're a
totally, mate.
Big swimmer.
Totally, it does.
I think you need to come up with a slightly better story, maybe that you were having just sort of a gentle net with Lockie Ferguson and Sean Tate and just crushed one through the covers and slightly high on the bat.
You're totally right, Paul. That's exactly what I should have done. Yeah, that's the story I'll tell from now on. And funnily enough, fellas, I was just about to get back into the golf. It's been, 10, 12 years since I played golf, and my mates are going, come on, Jace. And I was like, yeah, let's do this. And then this happens. But anyway, let's get to this T20 series, fellas. Dylan, where do we want to start? The second to last game?
Yeah, I think we should.
Yes, obviously.
Yeah, so Pakistan scored 158 for 5, batting first in their 20 overs. New Zealand replied with 159 for 3 and 18.1. Chased it down seemingly on the surface of things very easily, obviously, with Daryl Mitchell 72 not out and Glenn Phillips 70 not out. But in fact, they were 3 for bugger all.
Yes.
And it looked a bit squeaky bummish for a little while there, but your magnificent crowd at Hagley Oval and Mitchell and Phillips, just probably the two cricketers that have emerged the most in this, I guess we call it the tail end of the golden generation.
Sure. Well, we're going to talk a little bit later in the podcast about the pluses and minuses of this series. Certainly Mitchell and Phillips, for me, I'll be mentioning them. But yeah, we were in all sorts of bother there, Paul Ford. Then Mitchell and Phillips, great combination, took us home.
Yeah, and it was pretty chilled. I mean, Daryl Mitchell and, just didn't come out and throw the doctor at it, which he can sometimes do. We know he's got that sort of gear, but instead quite happy to accumulate. They took lots of ones and twos. Phillips is obviously just a busy bee out there. And, we were only, 70-odd, I think, after 10 overs. And it certainly didn't look like a foregone conclusion. But the way they just built it back up, it was just the absolute perfect way to resurrect the chase when you're 3 for 20.
Yeah, absolutely. And we talk about Mitchell quite a lot, and one of the things that maybe isn't acknowledged about him, which needs to be acknowledged more, he's an intelligent cricketer.
Yeah.
And then you factor in his father, obviously a bit of a coaching genius, a tactical genius.
Not a great batsman, though.
Not a great batsman, but what I was meaning by saying that was that obviously it runs in the family. He obviously can think through a game and work it out, because as Paul stated there, Dylan, they took it was pretty sedate there for a while after that initial collapse, and so he didn't panic.
Yeah, he didn't. In fact, his innings reminded me a little bit of Mohammad Rizwan's in the Pakistan innings.
Yes.
Again, he's kind of just purring along, and suddenly you look at the scoreboard and you go, oh, wow, he's got a 50.
Yeah.
And he walks off after 20 overs, he's got 90 not out, and you think, and yet I can barely remember, any shots he played.
Yes.
It was one of those kind of innings. Yeah, Mitchell is a very heady cricketer, I like to call him. He tends to play the right innings for the right time, which is why I found it quite ironic when they toured England and he was New Zealand's sole shining light in that test series, really, that they lost.
I'm still filthy about
3-0, yeah. They had a chance to win all 3 tests, lost 3-0. But he was getting chirped at quite a lot, and you could hear in the stump mics, the England guys kept calling him a selfish player. And I actually think he's emerged as the antithesis. Oh, that's not the right way of saying it, is it? Can you say
Nearly.
Antithesis, yeah.
Antithesis. Yeah, antithesis of a selfish player.
Well, in that regard, Paul Ford, I mean, there was chat that he was quite a selfish player, maybe not a big team man earlier in his career. I've interviewed him a couple of times. I certainly don't get that impression now. He seems very much team-orientated to me.
I totally agree with that. Yeah, I didn't know that, actually. I wonder whether it was born of a little bit of, if it was true, I guess, let's say that, but if it was born a little bit of just desperation to show his wares and knowing inside his head, probably around his own dinner table, that he could be out there doing as well as some of these Black Caps, and then finally being given the opportunity, and now he's basically the first guy picked in every single format, right? And it's no coincidence. I know we haven't talked about the fifth game yet. I don't think it's any coincidence that we lost the fifth game when Daryl Mitchell was sitting on the pine and commentating the cricket. Let's not forget, though, that in that fourth game, was it Mohammad Wasim, one of the Pakistani fielders with glorious hair? Pathetic piece of fielding. Just decided not to run in and catch it. I don't know what he was thinking.
Yeah.
He got 2 let-offs, didn't he? I guess we should mention that in passing, but it is T20 cricket. That sort of stuff happens.
Yeah, but Paul, I think you make a good point, which I was going to touch on a little bit later on. I think he's become a foundation of the side now, unquestionably. Well, let's go into that final match. I was commentating that on the Sunday, and I'll be honest with you, fellas, the general impression was, while we were doing the commentary, that Pakistan had one foot on the plane. It's 4-zip, let's get the hell out of here, let's get it done and dusted. And then we completely shat the bed, Dylan.
Yeah, well, they batted really boringly, didn't they? And it felt like, okay, we don't really want to play this game because we're 4-0 down, we've got nothing to prove. Let's just have a little bit of a knock around and see what happens. But I think we probably underestimated how tricky the wicket had got by then. Again, playing on the same strip at Hagley Oval. Again, magnificent crowd, this time under daylight.
Yeah, just on that, how good.
Yeah.
I mean, I thought
so good.
Dead rubber, bloody 2 games in a short space of time, sold out to the gunnels.
Disappointment that they batted first too, because I think the crowd wanted to get there and really get into a New Zealand 180 to 200 kind of total.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I was sorry, I was just going to say, you put the Black Clash in the middle of those games as well, and it was an absolute doozy of a weekend from a crowd perspective. Cricket, I mean, all of those matches free to air. I mean, that is a magnificent advertisement for the game ahead of the upcoming couple of months of cricket that we've got ahead of us.
Yeah, there definitely seems to be some sort of revival going on, if I can put it that way. Well, okay, fellas, let's look at the series. 4-1 winners and losers, Dylan Cleaver.
Yeah, okay. Well, the winners are pretty clear. The winners are Daryl Mitchell, Finn Allen, just as staggering. Obviously dropped off a little in the final 2 games, but it's T20 cricket. If you can string 3 innings together like he did, that's going to be a rarity in T20 cricket. So I thought he was fantastic. Daryl Mitchell was fantastic. Tim Southey, in what until the last T20 was a batter's series, was very, very good. Losers, well, I've actually got Adam Milne in both columns, if that's possible.
No, I don't think that is possible.
No,
well, I thought he showed real wicket-taking potential.
I feel like I should almost stop you there.
He reminded me of what we don't have in the Test game.
Yes.
Which is out-and-out pace. Fantastic athlete, but really is 11 runs per over sustainable for a long time in T20 cricket. I'm not sure that it is, but we'll take the wickets. Mark Chapman was a loser for me.
Oh, the poor guy.
That game.
My God. Because the funny thing is, I think it was a classic case. He's got the yips because he's actually a bloody good fieldsman.
Is he?
Yeah, he's actually a bloody good fieldsman.
I've been wondering that for a little while now.
No, he's actually good. I
think he's a good athlete.
But
I'm not convinced he's got great hands.
But I honestly think he's got the yips, Paul Ford.
Oh, I just felt so sorry for him, honestly. I mean, there was, because obviously it compounded, didn't it? There was the drop catch after the drop catch followed by the run out, which was just like, oh God, yeah. It was really heartbreaking watching it, and I hope he's okay. I really do.
I wanted to know what his thoughts were when that second catch was coming his way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Smacked in the air, he would have been, oh shit, here we go.
And when you look at the series, I mean, he had 4 bats, just having a quick look here, 4 bats. He scored 32 runs off 25 balls at an average of 8. So, didn't take a lot of confidence into the game and certainly didn't take much out.
Winners and losers for you, Paul?
Well, Mark Chapman, he'd be one.
As the loser?
Yeah, absolutely. And to continue it along that vein, I mean, Devon Conway, gosh, he is in a horrendous rut. 3 bats, averaged 9. Had a quick look. I think he's averaging 8 this year in cricket, in T20 cricket. He averaged 9. Last year, he averaged 13 in T20 cricket. And of course, let's not forget in 2020 and 2021, he was averaging sort of 47, 58, 47. So, yeah, he's really, really tailed off. Williamson getting injured, but sounds like he's going to be okay. But, in terms of the winners column, Williamson definitely looked sweet as, and great to see Finn Allen not just scoring runs at 200 strike rate, but also batting more than 10 balls. You know, he scored 275 runs off 141 balls, and that 137 was extraordinary.
Yeah, I'm in pretty much agreement with you, fellas, in terms of the winners. Finn Allen obviously learning some lessons, developing his game. That's a big plus. Phillips continues to be an enigma for me, but the Energizer Bunny of the side, the heartbeat, I guess, in many respects. And, he's phenomenal in the field as well. Yeah, he saves so many runs in the field. That's another bonus. I think Mitchell, it was already established, but if it wasn't, then he absolutely established himself as one of the foundational pillars of this side now and one of our most reliable players. Also, I was really stoked to see 3 pacemen in the attack. Your Sears, your Milnes, and your Lockie Ferguson, and a bit of a return to form for Lockie, who's been struggling for some time.
Cool.
He was the most economical bowler for New Zealand. He was the only one that went for less than 7 runs and over. So totally agree with that, Jace. Good call.
And also, I think Santner is. I agree with you about Southey. He just goes on, and it's all that experience. And Santner, he's a wily bowler these days.
Yeah, although sometimes I think he gets a little bit clever for himself.
Yes, I'd agree.
In T20s.
Amazing stat. Santner, do you know what his bowling average was for the series? 126. He only got 1 wicket. Pretty amazing. It feels like he has become that bowler that's like Vittori. They just want to see him off.
Yes.
And that's a great place for him to be.
Can I raise something here? And it's an expansion on Paul's very well made point before. And that I'm just starting. It's an inkling. It's not grown to anything more than an inkling. But I'm just starting to wonder if we have a decline for Devon Conway that extends beyond the fickle nature of T20 cricket, because as Paul read out his stats, you are working on a diminishing returns there. One-day cricket as well. He started off with his first year in one-day cricket. I think he averaged 75. Last year he averaged 45, which is still pretty bloody good, but that was bolstered hugely by a big unbeaten century against England at the World Cup. Very little else. And even in tests, he started off about 50s, now into the mid 40s, and it's not just the numbers, because those are still very good numbers, and he's still obviously a good player. But I've just got this tiny little inkling and a seed of doubt about the eye test. He seems to be getting cramped up a lot by bowlers now, who know that you do not feed the cover drive anymore. I mean, bowlers watch; they've got analytics coming out of their butt. They're constantly coming around the wicket to cramping them up, and we're seeing more and more of those awkward one-handed shovels into the leg side, which didn't exist when he first came onto the scene because he was just impeccable. So, I'm just interested in your thoughts whether he now needs to elevate his game. He needs to add some new things to his game.
Yeah, I think you make some really good points there, Dylan, actually, to be fair. But he is a classy player, and I think there is an element of him being found out a little bit now at international level. But I also think, Paul Ford, he's a good enough player to adjust his game and to recognise what's going on for him and to work on those issues.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, it would be interesting. I don't think that Cricinfo has a sort of squirt into the leg side after a ball nearly goes between your bat and pad statistic. But if there was, it feels like that ratio for him would be quite high compared to some batsmen, which reeks of video analysis and stats nerdery and all that sort of thing. So yeah, it does feel like he's one of those guys that he's forced people, I think, to go deep into his technique and go, right, where can we find a flaw, because he's plundered so many attacks. But yeah, I agree with you, Jace. I think he's good enough to work it through. And he had such an extraordinary start to his career that there was always going to be an element of him reverting to the mean. I do wonder at some point. Well, I mean, I know Daryl Mitchell sort of doesn't seem to suffer from it, but I do wonder whether a couple of these guys that are playing all the formats plus a lot of franchise cricket are just tired, and that's coming through in some of the stats.
Yeah, maybe. He's always had that sort of weakness on or around the off stump and that little inside edge, the gap between bat and pad. He had a propensity for that. Now, listen, New Zealand versus South Africa, isn't it great, guys, that we got South Africa and Australia? I mean, she's by no means over. No Bolt, no Blundell. Williamson, yes.
Okay.
Who is going to be in the test squad?
Do we know about Blundell for certain, do we? I know he's in doubt.
Sounded I mean, I saw some stuff that Stead said in the last 24 hours, which, they weren't hopeful. And, they were starting to make noises about who might be brought in. So, yeah, I think we should assume that he's not there and hope that he is.
Okay, because that's fascinating to me, because everything about the squad hinges on the decision they make around Blundell. So they've got options, right? Bring in a like for like, a wicketkeeper batter, which probably tradition, conservatism would say that's what you do. Or if they know it's not a major injury and it's probably just a one-off, do you give the gloves to Latham and then give an opportunity to a Will Young, or even, dare I say it, a Tom Bruce, the prolific Tom Bruce, to come into the squad and get an opportunity? Because
But when you say that, are you chucking those Tom Bruce opening the batting?
No.
Right,
it's just one test. If you know that Blundell's nearly ready but not quite, you say to Tommy Latham, we know it's just one test. Can you open and keep for one test? And I'm sure he'd say yes, because he's a good man. He's a team man. I suspect they won't go that route, which is it's probably what I would do. But most people that I've talked to would say, nah, that's stupid. That's absolutely stupid. Yeah, go like for like. In which case it's probably either going to be Cam Fletcher, Tim Seifert, or Dane Cleaver. I think they probably see Tim Seifert as white ball only. Dane Cleaver's got the best first-class batting numbers of those three, but they might see Cam Fletcher as the better out-and-out keeper. So, yeah, the squad, what I'm essentially taking a really long time to say is we know what most of the squad is going to be,
yes,
except for that question around the keeper.
Yeah, Paul Ford.
Yeah, look, I think that Gary Stead will, what's his name? Sam, the Otago selector guy?
Sam Wells.
The one. Yeah, looks like Sam Wells, looks like Daniel Vittori 2.0. I reckon they're going to go Latham. So I think they're going to bring Young in, and it's going to be Young and Conway, Williamson, Nichols, Mitchell. Latham will keep down the order. Chuck Phillips in there somewhere, Henry, Jamieson, Southey, Wagner. That's what I reckon they're going to do. I think if you were picking the perfect team, you'd love to have Trent Bolt in there. There's lots of speculation about him being back for some of the one-dayers against the Aussies, or is it the T20s? I'm not sure.
T20s against the Aussies, I think they were hoping.
Just clarify for me, fellas, what it is against South Africa, what we're playing?
Tests.
Two tests.
Yeah.
Against a very weak South African team, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Bay Oval and Seddon Park. So, yeah. That's what I think. It does sound like, just sort of reading the tea leaves, that Blundell won't be there and Williamson will. So that's obviously good. And then, guys that are in and around that I was sort of trying to work out, could they get them in there? Is it an opportunity to get Ratchin back in there? Michael Bracewell's back for Wellington. AJ Patel's always in the squad. Tickner was sort of their last start. Santa was their last start, and Dougie Bracewell. So, yeah, some of the others in the mix.
I'm wondering about Wagner too. He's the other one that I'd keep an eye out, because it just feels like they're trying to ease him out of the picture a little bit. He wasn't initially named for Bangladesh, then he was. I don't think he played either of the tests in Bangladesh. He obviously got that tap up from England quite severely last summer, but then came back and did heroics in that test before injuring himself against Sri Lanka. Yeah, I know it's harsh, because he's just such a legend, and I love watching him play. I love the energy he brings. But I do wonder, they're going to have to move on from him at some stage.
Point. Yeah,
You've got to pick Wagner against South Africa.
Yeah, against South Africa.
He's going to be so angry.
Yeah, I know.
And I honestly think he's one of those characters actually that you can, it's a cliche to say it, but you can never count him out. Yeah. And in fact, the more you count him out, the harder he's going to come back. Almost, he's that kind of personality. And good question, that one.
The one other point of intrigue is they have been to Mount Maunganui, to the Bay Oval before, without spin and have really sucked the kuma on it. So what are their spin options here? I mean, will they go without a spinner and just play the paces? Will they bring in Kane Williamson's safety blanket, former safety blanket, in Mitchell Santner, who can bolster the batting? Tim Southey probably doesn't see it the same. Do they bring in Ajaz Patel and give him a test in this country where he's never taken a test wicket? Do they go back to the beast? Is he ready? Or do they go something more radical, like a Ratchin type option? I mean, yeah, perhaps it is actually one of the more fascinating test namings in some time.
Can we bloody get Ratchin in there, please? I mean, seriously.
You're asking the wrong people here.
He's the future of our game.
But is he the future of our game as a spinner?
And is he the future of our game at Mount Maunganui where he played a test match and we lost the test match from memory?
Yeah, but what the hell, man?
Yeah. Oh, look, no, I agree in principle. And if you've got a batting position that's opening up because Blundell's not there, then, if you're looking to the future genuinely and you're playing a weakened South African team, get him in there. I'm not going to have any arguments from me. On the South African side of things, though, I saw a quote from their coach today who said they don't like being called the underdogs, which is like wildly ambitious. But their coach did say Ashwell Prince was the batting coach for Bangladesh when they pulled off the miracle at the Mount. They are looking to pull off the second miracle at the Mount with Ashwell Prince also there helping the South Africans. Great quote from Mark Reason and stuff today. He compared this South African team. This is what he said. There won't be riots on the street. The police won't be pelted. New Zealand families won't fight amongst themselves. But 43 years on from the Springbok tour, another team from South Africa has arrived in this country to desecrate the sporting landscape.
Crikey. Drama.
Lofty.
But massively looking forward to the boys playing a bit of Test cricket again. We'll just take a short break and be back shortly. Welcome back to the podcast, the Under-19 Cricket World Cup, Afghanistan 91.
Yeah, I watched this. I really enjoyed it. It was fascinating.
I thought it was in New Zealand 92 for 9.
Yeah.
With 130 balls remaining.
I was just trying to think who they... Because I was watching it the other day. Who were they playing New Zealand?
They were playing Nepal.
Nepal, yes.
Yeah.
Did we win that one? I missed the end of it.
Yeah, won that easily. We better first in that one. Got a big score.
Yes.
Snehith Reddy got a big 100. But for some reason was not...
Sorry, that guy that you just mentioned, Dylan, who's his batting mentor? Daryl Mitchell.
There you go. But they didn't pick him for the next game.
He's crook or injured, I did see. Yeah,
right. Yeah. I was wondering that because they panned to him on the sideline and he looked very unhappy, and I wondered if he'd celebrated his big 100 in the first game too hard or something. I didn't know what was going on. But Afghanistan batted first in very tricky conditions in East London in South Africa. Matt Rowe, cousin, I believe, of Hannah Rowe, bowled just superb outswinging, clipping the top off stump to the right-handers, going through the gate on left-handers. He looked fantastic. 5 wickets. I thought, this is a bit of a laugher. I'll just watch them knock this off for 1 down or something in about 12 overs. And, oh, my goodness, never pick on kids, so I'm not going to. But some of that batting against that spinner was comedic. It was, I just wonder what some of these guys are being taught. I mean, he bowled well. He bowled very well. He obviously had a bit of a mystery ball to him, but jeepers, there were some holy techniques.
Yeah, I don't know about you, Phil. I enjoy watching the Under-19s.
Yes, same.
It's good cricket. Unfortunately, I missed this particular game. But yeah, she's a close run thing by the look of it, Paul Ford.
Yeah, look, cards on the table here. The captain of that team's a young fella that I know the parents pretty well. A great kid called Oscar Jackson and his mum.
Good player.
Marcia, and
yeah, he's a good player.
Kit. and he's got a younger brother called Charlie, and Charlie's played a bit of cricket with my son. He's a little gun as well, currently playing for Wellington at the under-17s. Great cricketing family. Just super proud of seeing what Oscar's going to get up to over the next few years. But yeah, look, it was a hell of a game actually in the end, and there was an incident that is just getting cricket nerds around the world salivating, because there was a bronzing, which is now what the new term is. So there's no more mankading, boys. Cricket nerds are calling this a bronzing. Batter run out at the non-striker's end. Bronzing. So, we might call it mankad shithousery. But, yeah, basically what you had was Ewald Schroeder was safely in his crease for 7 deliveries as the bowler sort of ran past him and bowled. Now, he's got one of those techniques where he looks his backing up routine, he's looking at the striker. He's not looking at the bowler. And you could see the wicketkeeper and the bowler came together and said, hey, you should do this thing. And they started chit-chatting about it. And, anyway, of course, the bowler comes in and literally watched the batter the whole way until he walked out of his crease, and then off go the bails. Bang, he's gone. Basic tenet. Peter Dellapena said this he's a massive cricket nerd on X/Twitter. He said, golden rule here, never take your eyes off the ball. Batsmen at the non-strikers end have to change their technique if they're not doing this. So, I think it's a shithouse way to get a wicket. Don't get me wrong, but certainly a bit of naivety as well.
Yeah, but can we just talk about this for a little bit longer, because it really pisses me off. The bowler had no intention of bowling that ball. That's what really pisses me off about it. It's not like he ran in with the full intention of bowling and saw the batsman taking a liberty. It was cooked up. It was
fake bowling. Absolutely,
it was fake bowling. And I reckon his arm went past the vertical. And isn't there a rule that once your arm goes past the vertical, you are compelled to bowl it or to not do the bronzing / man-cattery?
Well, it's a good call, though, and I guess that it got referred up, and he's got such a weird low bowling action that it's really hard to work out where the vertical is, if you get what I mean. Like he sort of brought it through kind of almost ear height. The weird thing as well, he switched hands and then took the bails off with the other hand. So God, it was a shambles. There was lots of chat. Apparently, my Afghani is not very good, but you could literally hear the wicketkeeper saying to the bowler, run him out. And the bowler was like, no. And then the wicketkeeper goes, do it for Afghanistan. And then he did it.
You know what that is? Cricketing filth. Filth.
Yeah, it left New Zealand about 2 runs short, I think, with only obviously the last batter to come in, and Matt Rowe played the hero again. Got one through the covers. They won. So all's well that ends well. But yeah, it was tasty.
New Zealand skipper's name in that side, was it Jackson?
Oscar.
OJ. Yeah. He was good. He was a good player, man. I like the look of him because he came in against that game against Nepal, and we were struggling a little bit. We were about 3 for, and he took the attack to them. So yeah, someone to look out for. Now the Super Smash finals looming, 2nd versus 3rd tomorrow at Seddon Park. Men Canterbury Kings versus Wellington Firebirds.
Damn it!
What?
Oh, CD. All they needed to do was go to Dunedin and beat Otago, and they were in that elimination final. Do you know what the result of that game was? A tie. A flippin' tie. No super over.
I love that the Volts did that to you.
So the stinking Cantabs get in at the expense of CD.
For the women, Northern Blaze versus Central Hinds. God, I hate that name so much.
I like you saying that.
6 p.m. The finals Sunday, Eden Park. Women Blaze versus either ND or CD. And then the men, Auckland Aces versus either Canterbury or Wellington.
Come on, the Firebirds. I never say that, but come on. I mean, what a Hobson's choice that is for the men.
Whoa.
Either Auckland, Wellington or Canterbury.
Hey, steady on.
Yeah.
Northern Districts are the defending champions. They're not there, which is quite an interesting point.
I don't mind ND.
I thought you were going to get on board with that. But my point was actually going to be ND defending champs for the men, not in the top 3 this year. Canterbury, I think, defending champs for the women, not in the top 3 this year. Does show how the worm turns, and this is a really difficult competition to pick from year to year. We've actually got a tabby, Good Punt Boys, that we're going to be putting on $100 on the nose of Wellington versus Canterbury. So something else to go for there. Wellington Firebirds are paying $2.08. So, we'll get a few pennies back for that one. I'll shut up in a sec, but I do think that it's a bit crap that the Blaze don't get to host the final after they've had yet another dominant season. First of all, I'd like to go and watch some cricket at the Basin on Sunday, but apart from it not fitting in with my travel plans, I think it's a bit wonky that they have to go up and play their final at Eden Park. They get no home advantage. And if you play this through, there is a situation which fortunately hasn't happened, but they could be playing Auckland in the final at Eden Park, just because it's always at the at the finalist of the men's. I just think that that's a bit shit, and I think it's a bit suboptimal, really, and I feel a bit sorry for them, and I hope they win on that basis.
I think last year, actually, it was the men that had to travel, so it alternates, doesn't it? So it didn't matter who qualified first in the men last year. They were playing at who qualified first in the women's home ground. So I think ND may have won the title in Christchurch. Is that right?
I think that's right. Yeah.
Also, the retirement of Hamish Rutherford, and good player. And for quite some time there, I think New Zealand felt that, hey, we've found our opener. He had from recollection, Dylan Cleaver, a pretty solid start to his Test career.
Oh, spectacular start.
Seemed a very steady, evenly balanced kind of fella, but never quite went on with it.
No, I actually think he's one of the more curious careers.
Yes.
He compiled a very good career across all three formats for Otago, played quite a bit of county cricket as well. He might have got close to 20 first-class centuries across the teams, maybe 17, I think. But he started with that superlative, although slightly lucky, 171 against England at the University Oval, his first Test innings, and there were all these stories done comparing the start of his Test career to his father, obviously, who got a pair in the West Indies and ended up averaging, I think, 1.7 for the series over there, the poor bugger, 19-year-olds facing the four horsemen of the apocalypse over there. Was a slightly different start to Hamish's career, but it kind of, I don't want to this sound disrespectful because he's a fine player and a fine domestic cricketer, but water kind of found its level there. And if you look at his Test career, he averaged 84.33 at University Oval and 20.08 wherever else he batted. So kind of never could kick on from that start, but a really pleasant kind of player to watch.
And with his glasses there, quite a studious-looking chap, because his father was never short of a word, was he?
Still isn't.
Yeah, and still isn't. Yeah.
No, I had a quick look back in advance of today, and there's a great description of his knock, that 171, which at the time, I think it's outside the top 10 now because the years have gone by, but it was the 7th highest maiden Test innings in the history of cricket. And it said that he showed an uncomplicated appetite for mayhem as he made England pay for their hapless bowling. And that is described his innings as freewheeling. And he got interviewed by the Otago Daily Times this week, and I think it was New Zealand Cricket actually that said that he sort of was a key member of the fact that the Otago Volts are quite often known as the Otago Voltarans, because he's had a number of injuries, concussions, dodgy hips, as Dylan said, inevitable comparisons with his old man Ken. And there was a quote in there which I thought was quite poignant. He said, did my international career go as well as I would have liked? No, but I would have loved another go near the back end of my 20s and early 30s when I really got the grasp of what I was about. And they asked if he had any regrets. He said, maybe I had a few too many beers. Actually, I take that back. I loved having a few beers. I thought that was great. It's probably summed him up.
Great stuff. Now, Australia versus the West Indies, of course. Australia pumping the West Indies in the first test. Starts today at the Gabba at 5 p.m, a pink baller. Weather's not looking great. Head Green and coach Andrew McDonald have the vid. Khawaja has a headache. Rinse and repeat for Australia? Me think so.
No, I can't see this. If they get some decent weather and knowing the vagaries of pink ball cricket, I can't see this lasting 3 days.
Yep. But I'll still be watching it. Don't you worry about that.
Well,
I love Test cricket in Australia. I just do. I mean, Australia, of course, it makes me throw up in my mouth a bit, but it's always a great thing to sit on the couch and watch Australian Test cricket.
I really don't like pink ball cricket. I've gone off it. I'm a stick in the mud about that. I just think it's too heavily weighted in terms of a fate. Who gets to bat under lights, you're coming in under lights with the pink ball, I think you're doomed. So I'm not a big fan of that. I instead am going to watch another test match that starts today at 5 p.m, but this one in Hyderabad. Or I think it's Cyberabad, as they call it.
Yeah, England versus
being
India.
the heart of India's tech industry.
Just on the pink ball test, just some stats to make you feel slightly sick and not maybe think about not watching it, Jace. Australia, 11 from 11 in pink ball tests. Stark, 61 wickets at 18. Cummins, 33 at 15. And Hazelwood, 32 at 19 with the pink ball. And Marnus Labuschagne averages 74 in pink ball tests.
Not watching it.
82 at the Gabba, and he hasn't scored a ton. Neither's Steve Smith, neither's Usman Khawaja. There's a lot of boxes to tick. Cocky Australian bastards are talking about this test being the 5th of a 7-0 series. New Zealand is the 6th and 7th test match in that 7-test series. Cocky Aussie bastards.
Yeah. Geez, I tell you what, though, how good is Cummins?
Oh, he's amazing.
He's just a phenomenal bowler. Yeah, I think that's a fait accompli. As you said, Paul, England versus India at Hyderabad. 5. Are they both on Sky?
Yep.
Yeah, good-o.
Yep.
Bazball versus the wounded India. Brook pulls out. Kohli pulls out. Visa shithousery.
Yeah, well, the visa shithousery is, that's pretty bad. England have got a young spinner whose name has just popped out of my head now. The worst
Shoaib Bashir, born in Surrey.
Bashir, yes. So he's of Pakistani heritage. So he's been waiting for his visa, and it hasn't arrived in time for the first test. I think actually Ben Stokes was talking about even boycotting the test and protest at it, but obviously calmer heads have prevailed there. They're going to play. The Harry Brook thing's interesting, and actually so is the Virat Kohli one. Both the press releases for both of them have kind of not just requested privacy, but demanded privacy. And Virat Kohli's one in particular said, don't even speculate on the reasons.
I'm going to speculate on the reasons.
Yeah, he said, there's something that demands my complete and utter attention, and I will be unavailable for the first 2 tests. What does it sound like to you, Paul?
Jace, Kohli's having a baby.
Is he pregnant?
Oh, yeah, no, sorry. His wife's having a baby.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Is that it?
Yeah. Definitely.
Harry Brook one's slightly troubling.
That says a serious situation involving a family member, so that sounds quite grim, to be honest.
Yeah. Hey, it's time now for the ever-popular Who Am I with Dylan Cleaver.
Thanks, Jace. I've been promised a sting for a month now. So
what's going on there, Adam? Come on, man.
Yeah, still on the backside of the Black Clash, but that's no excuse. And if there's nothing next week, I owe you a few beers, Dylan. I'll wear that one.
I love how ready you were to avenge yourself there, Adam. That was good.
Right, so last week's winner was, of course, Tim McIntosh, and the clues were all in the mint, the egg.
Well, you see, as I say, I knew that. I just didn't want to blow it for the listeners out there.
So many, I love our listeners. So many winners from Reese Whiting, Patrick Pedersen, who is so close to being called Patrick Patterson. When I tapped it out subconsciously, Matt Parker, Chris Eyes, Matt Smith, Thomas Fletcher, James Bonkowski, but there can only be one actual winner, and that goes to Peter Douglas because it came with a little anecdote. He goes, it's Tim McIntosh, right? My one schoolboy cricket claim to fame was bowling him with a non-turning off break as he tried to launch me into the grandstand of the Auckland Domain. He was a bit of a dasher in those days, funnily enough. Keep up the good work. You keep up the good work too, Peter, and we are going to arrange for Mike Lane to get something off to you. You might need to email us with your address, and we'll get something down the line to you. And also, I just want to have a quick shout-out, sorry, taking a long time here, to a message that we missed a few weeks ago, actually. It's from Lockie, I think it's Lockie Burrell, who correctly guessed Verdon Scott. And he wrote in to say that it's the favourite part of his week was him and his dad sitting down and listening to the BYC and trying to guess who am I. So what a great set of listeners we've got. Anyway, without further ado, who am I?
Dylan Cleaver.
And as a quick public service announcement, all these players have played Test cricket for New Zealand. I should have probably established that right at the start.
Oh, okay? Whoa, God.
So they have played at least one Test for New Zealand.
I almost feel like I know already who this is.
Yes. Who am I? My rather endomorphic presence loomed large over cricket in this country, even after my retirement from playing. Although born in Wellington, I was educated at the Straven Road Academy of Higher Learning, and it was here that I began to make my presence felt, scoring 2 double centuries in college matches. I scored heavily under the poxy-hooped cap of Canterbury as an obdurate and skillful opening bat, and should have played more than my 9 tests for New Zealand, but my career unfortunately coincided with the first time the New Zealand Cricket Board took fitness seriously. When I did play for New Zealand, I was one of those players who performed excellently in tour matches and possibly didn't do myself justice in the actual tests. Hence, my underwhelming test average in the low 20s. I am subject of one of the greatest tour photographs of all time, snapped without a stitch of clothing in Peshawar, Pakistan. After playing, I was a selector and administrator of note, my skills as a barrister coming to the fore until I died far too young of a heart attack. My cousin also played for New Zealand, and my son didn't, although he went on more cricket tours than I did. Who am I?
Well, there you go. I don't think Paul and I should speculate, because I think this is one for the listeners.
Do you two have any clue?
Yes, I do have a clue.
Oh, do you? That's good.
Has he got a relative, I don't even know, that was a journalist?
Oh, that would be giving too much away.
Similar name, perhaps?
Yes.
Well, okay. That's a yes.
Great stuff. Well, get in contact with us if you know the answer to that, and you could win yourself an extraordinary prize and $1 million cash. Hey, we're going to take a short break and be back shortly. Welcome back. It's time for Paul Ford's News or Ruse.
There it is. The Oi Hoi Trophy is on the North Shore with Dylan Cleaver. 3 bits of news. There'll be something wrong with one of them. New Zealand Cricket has confirmed the umpires took too many overs out of this week's critical Women's Super Smash T20 between the Otago Sparks and the Northern Brave, which Northern won by 22 runs by the DLS method and progressed to the playoffs. There were 2 interruptions during Northern's innings, and New Zealand Cricket's head of cricket operations, Charlie Brewer, said in their haste to get the game restarted, the umpires stuffed up. Sparks coach Craig Cumming was, I thought, surprisingly chilled out. At the end of the day, we still played enough overs to get a result, but if you take 4 overs out of any game, it has an impact on both sides. But if anything has come out of this, it is that the Duckworth-Lewis-Stern system is set up the same for the male and female game. And he said he wasn't sure whether the same calculations should apply to both genders' games. So there we go. Bit of a weird one there. Umpires, they suck at times. Number 2, Australian maniac Glenn Maxwell has broken his silence after a massive boozy night out, which ended with him being rushed to hospital in an ambulance following a gig by a terrible band in Adelaide. The Australian cricket star was taken to hospital after passing out in the green room while watching former fast bowler Brett Lee's band 6 and Out play. What a disgrace. The superstar all-rounder had been in Adelaide for a golf promotion before heading out for more drinks, with those close to Maxwell suggesting dehydration after a hot day had played its part. Glenn is a bit embarrassed by the whole thing, his manager Ben Tippett said. Captain Pat Cummins conveniently was at the gig but didn't cross paths with Maxwell on the night, and said he wasn't overly concerned amid accusations of a pattern of behaviour involving Maxwell, who also fell off the back of a golf cart during the World Cup in India and missed a game with concussion, and of course, let's not forget, broke his leg at a barbecue after a few drinks. And number 3, 4 Black Caps and 2 White Ferns have earned selection to the ICC's International Teams of the Year. Kane Williamson in the Test team, Mitchell and Ravindra in the men's ODI side, Mark Chapman in the men's T20 11, White Ferns Leah Tahuhu and Amelia Kerr in the women's ODI team, and Kerr, the woman alone from a New Zealand point of view, in the women's T20 side. There we go. That's the 3. What's wrong with one of those, boys?
Everything about story 2 is true. I've been following that story with a microscope. It's brilliant. Except the one thing you got wrong about it, but I don't think it's the news or ruse, is that it wasn't at a barbecue. He shattered his leg at his friend's 50th, which wasn't a barbecue.
How do you know? Where do you know that?
because
you were there. That's the only excuse.
Because they had no gas. They ran out of gas before they could put the Weber on. So his foot crashed through a deck, I believe. So that leaves stories 1 or 3. Jeepers, 1 sounded pretty good, actually. That's an interesting point you made. I never even thought about the DLS being different for men and women, or whether they should. I guess it's the same algorithm, really, isn't it? I can't believe you'd say that. So
that was going to be what I was going to say. How can you say that?
So I'm going to go for that. Story 1.
Yes, Jace. And what about you, Jace? What story would you pick, Jace?
I've written it. I've written it down.
Well, what would your second choice be, though?
What was the third story again?
That's correct, Jace.
Thanks,
well done. Brilliant. Of course, you know that Rachin Ravindra wasn't named in the men's ODI side because he was named the ICC Emerging Cricketer.
Yeah, he was too.
What I was going to say was that Chapman wasn't named in the T20 side. That was my second choice.
Yes, he was.
Was a yes.
No, and it wasn't emerging. It was breakout player of the year, wasn't it? That Ravindra guy.
ICC Emerging. I've literally got the photo in front of me. It's beautiful. God, he's a good looking. Got a great lid on him, doesn't he? Great salad, Rachin Ravindra.
Yes. Violence corner, Paul Ford.
Paul Ford's Cricket Violence Corner.
A man who was playing the role of a deity in a play in India collapsed on stage while performing on Monday, officials said. The man, identified as Mr. Mehta, suffered a heart attack during his performance. The scene involved the coronation of a god and featured a full-on song. Upon the conclusion of the song, Mr. Mehta was supposed to offer prayers at the god's feet. As he collapsed to the ground, most of the audience believed it was part of the act, but when attempts were made to pick him up from the stage, he did not respond as expected and was rushed to hospital in his god costume. Mr. Mehta had been playing park cricket earlier in the day. He bowled 7 overs and scored 23 not out, and that was believed to have contributed to his downfall on the night.
Great stuff, mate.
Tenuous connection to cricket.
Toppa Correspondence of the Week, brought to you by Leader NZ's Lasagna Toppa.
Hey, now, in terms of correspondence, fellas, what do you want to go with here? Rhys on domestic batting or Richard on leggies?
I reckon we should rush through both, actually. I love the fact we get correspondence. Love it. So why don't you rush through Rhys on domestic batting and I'll have a crack on Richard on leggies.
Thoroughly enjoy the critical analysis that you all bring to the men's and women's game, including who shouldn't be in the Black Caps, White Ferns. It doesn't get personal, but does provide insight into
who isn't cutting it
anymore. Question from me, who are the next set of batsmen coming through the Plunkett Shield Ford Trophy that will take over from the Williamsons, Nichols, Lathams, Conways? Well, these 4 still have a few years left and cricketers can now play longer. They are all past 30. I am an avid follower of the New Zealand domestic game, but haven't seen many dominate season upon season. I assume gone are the days of worker Bruce and DC mentioned Cleaver is unlikely to make it much more in a black shirt in a few podcasts back.
Yeah, it's a bloody good question, actually. I've obviously I watched quite a bit of domestic cricket, and you're right, there's a reason why these batters don't get dropped, and that there's not a lot below them in that kind of mid-20s age range that ideally you'd like to be plucking from at the moment. Rachin Ravindra is the very obvious one. I quite like the look of a couple of the young Wellington thrusters. I think Nick Greenwood might have been one I watched earlier in the season, thought he had a bit about him, but don't really know a heck of a lot about him. There's always been talk about Craig Cummings' oldest son, Jacob, but it's not as if he's set the world on fire in the Plunkett Shield. So the short answer is, I'm not really sure.
Yeah. Paul?
Yeah, I think the answer's sort of tied up in the question in a way. You know, I think some of these guys have come to the party quite late. You know, we've talked about Mitchell and Conway in the podcast already today. They're 32 now, but let's not forget that those guys only debuted for New Zealand 2019, 2020. So, you know, they're not sort of, they haven't been playing for that long for New Zealand. So I think they'll still be hanging around for quite a while. And I put guys like Will Young in that. I'd put Will Young in there. I'd put, Phillips is 27, Seifert's 29, Chapman's 29, even Cam Fletcher is only 30 years old. Will Young's 31. And then that next sort of cohort down, these guys, I don't know if they're going to be plundering domestic runs. They're going to be blooded through, I think, T20s. They're going to be blooded through one-day international cricket, and they're going to do stuff on other stages. So I think that's where you're going to see I think Dean Foxcroft's going to come through. Dylan mentioned Ratchin. I'm not giving up on Finn Allen. There's been 3 tons scored in domestic 4-day cricket this year. He's scored 2 of them. So, jeepers, what an excitement machine he'd be up there if we can get him doing that consistently. And Mohamed Abbas,
Mohamed Abbas,
he is going to be a gun. Yeah. I know he hasn't set the world on fire ever since we started talking about him, but he's going to at some point.
Yes.
Mark my words.
Great stuff. Now,
Richard on leggies.
Richard on leggies.
Yeah, following DC voicing his concerns recently about Ish Sodhi and whether he is legit at international standard, I've recently been pondering who is the best leggy in New Zealand. Melly Kerr's recent red-hot form with bat and ball led me to ask myself, and now you, illustrious gentlemen, whether you'd pick her in a Black Caps test side for India if it was possible. Surely she could push one through at 90 clicks if she wanted and it mattered, and as women's reflexes are no slower than men's, surely she's more than capable of batting 8 and 9 against men with a bit of practice. I look forward to your thoughts from Richard. And jeepers, it's a bold assertion.
Yes.
I'm not sure if she is capable of pushing it through at the required amount of clicks to be viable in men's cricket. I've got to be honest with you there. And also, in fact, this has been a real revival of her bowling in the Super Smash because it was starting to fall off a cliff. And I think the boys at the Niche Cache did some stat nerdery a wee while back about how ineffective her bowling had been in international cricket over the last few years compared to when she started, when she was a leggy who could bat a bit. So, it's not probably what we want to hear, but no, I do not think she'd be capable of playing
Paul,
for the Black Caps.
Save the podcast.
You want to talk MVP cricketers? Melly Kerr is just an absolute weapon, and I know we're probably all in agreement on that. But I think, I'm not sure about the biomechanics of reflex times. I need to get into some medical research on that one. But I don't think we should forget that the women do bowl with a smaller, lighter ball. So which balls are you going to use? Are we going to be having women's boundaries? The boundaries are shorter. The inner circle is smaller. So I think we're not really comparing apples with apples here. The other thing that's kind of interesting, Jared Kimber's done a bunch of work on this. In women's cricket, they bowl a lot more spin. So 47% of the bowling in women's T20 cricket is spin versus only sort of 36, 37, 38%, something like that in men. So it's kind of an interesting thing. Like the power game is obviously different in the women's game. I would love to see her have a go. I would love to see, instead of the Black Clash, we have mixed gender superstar teams play next year and everyone goes hard out and we see what happens.
Good call, mate.
Yeah, I
Good
do
call.
want to say she's a hell of a player. Do not get me wrong.
Yes.
Any of my cynicism there is not directed at Melly Kerr, who is fantastic at cricket.
She is indeed. Well, that brings us to the end of the podcast. Just incidentally, on your correspondence, Paul, what do people need to do?
Flick us an email to byc@beigebrigade.co.nz or slide into our DMs on the Beige Brigade or the Alternative Commentary Collective on Instagram or Facebook. And thanks heaps to people that do get in touch. We absolutely love it. We share it on our little cheeky WhatsApp group. Do keep your epistles short and sweet.
150 words and
max.
less. Yeah.
That'd be beautiful. But great correspondence. Keep it coming.
Great stuff, DC. What's going on the bounce?
The bounce is getting geared up for what is going to be an amazing February with South Africa here and Australia here, Super Smash finals. It's just, actually that's happening before February. But yeah, please sign up. I'd love to have you along for the ride. DylanCleaver.substack.com or just Google Dylan Cleaver, The Bounce.
Great stuff. And before we finish up, fellas, the Dulux Tradies 11 match is only a few months away now. Make sure you put your name into the hat to win a spot for you and a mate in the famous Dulux Tradies 11 at Bay Oval in March. After 4 years of humiliating losses, mostly due to Dylan Cleaver running out Hoyte in the last match, the ACC team is looking for redemption. You could win a spot in the team, plus flights and accommodation for this epic two-day event. To enter, just text Dulux to 3236 and complete the web form.
Good little bit of defamation in there, and God, that'll be a great day out. Sensational.
I'm looking forward to doing it again.
The game
What,
or the
running?
No, the running out.